Love, a topic that we all have experienced at least once, but do you really understand it? Why are some relationships strong, while others are easily broken? Have you ever loved a man who slowly became someone you barely recognized? At first, he was present, passionate, and full of promise. But as time passed, his energy changed. The warmth faded. The attention drifted. You're left asking yourself, what happened? Why did he change when nothing seemed to go wrong? The truth is, love doesn't always disappear. Sometimes, it simply transforms in silence. And if you don't understand the reasons behind that change, you might start blaming yourself. But not every shift is your fault. Sometimes, his silence speaks of something much deeper. Welcome to the channel, Sophia's Knowledge, and my name is Sophia. This is where you will find valuable lessons and secrets to help you build a truly lasting love. In today's video, Sophia will explore with you 6 reasons why men change after a long time in love. Don't miss out on advice that can change the way you perceive and live in love. You will definitely feel more comfortable when you find a quiet place and put on your headphones. Let yourself relax and be ready to receive the positive messages in today's video. Are you ready to embark on this journey with Sophia? Let's get started together. Reason 1. The initial excitement fades. In the early days of a romantic relationship, everything feels electric. Every glance, every touch, every message carries weight. There's a surge of dopamine and novelty that makes both partners feel like they've discovered something rare and magical. In those first few months, it's not uncommon for a man to be extremely attentive, affectionate, and expressive. He makes time, he sends texts, he plans surprises. You feel like the center of his universe. But then, slowly, and almost imperceptibly, things begin to shift. The late-night conversations start to dwindle. The thoughtful messages come less frequently. The surprises disappear. And worst of all, you can feel that the emotional temperature has cooled, though no one has said it aloud. This phenomenon is not unique to your relationship. In fact, it's incredibly common. But that doesn't make it any less painful or confusing. Why does this happen? Why do so many men change after the honeymoon phase of love begins to fade? The answer lies deep in the human psyche, in how we respond to novelty, comfort, and emotional familiarity. The thrill of the chase. For many men, the initial phase of a relationship offers a sense of purpose, the pursuit. It's not about manipulation or playing games. It's about how the male brain is wired to respond to excitement and reward. When he's pursuing you, he's inspired, focused, and driven. There's a fire in him because every interaction is new, every kiss is a first, and every shared moment is unexplored territory. But once the relationship settles into routine, some men experience an emotional letdown. The thrill of the unknown fades, replaced by predictability. While a mature and emotionally intelligent man will grow from this phase into deeper intimacy and connection, others don't know how to handle the transition. They confuse the end of excitement with the end of love. Comfort can breed complacency. There's a hidden danger in comfort. Once a man feels secure in the relationship, he may unconsciously stop putting in the effort he once did. The good morning texts become optional. The date nights get postponed. He starts to assume you'll always be there, that your presence no longer needs to be earned, only maintained. This isn't always out of malice or arrogance. Sometimes it's simply a reflection of how human beings take for granted what they believe they won't lose. Familiarity dulls urgency. Routine weakens spontaneity. And over time, effort becomes replaced with expectation. But here's the deeper truth: a relationship that survives beyond the excitement phase requires intention. It requires effort not driven by novelty, but by commitment. Emotional burnout and inner conflict. In some cases, men withdraw not because they're bored, but because they're emotionally overwhelmed. Maybe they feel unworthy of love or fear vulnerability. Maybe they've never seen a healthy, long-term relationship modeled before. When the relationship shifts from passionate to peaceful, they might interpret that as something being wrong, rather than something evolving. This internal confusion often results in a man pulling away. Not because he loves you less, but because he doesn't understand how to love differently. He was never taught how to sustain love without the high of emotional stimulation. He's left grappling with silent questions. Is this still love? Why don't I feel the same intensity? Is something wrong with me, or with her? Rather than confronting these questions with maturity and communication, he changes his behavior. He grows distant. And without words, he leaves you wondering why everything suddenly feels different. When you feel the shift. If you've ever loved someone who changed after the excitement wore off, you know how disorienting it can be. You start questioning yourself. You replay memories, trying to pinpoint what went wrong. You wonder if you should have done more, been different, smiled more, complained less. But hear this clearly, the fading of excitement isn't your fault. It's a natural phase of all relationships. What matters is how two people handle it together. A strong relationship transitions from infatuation to intimacy. From passion to partnership. From sparks to substance. If a man can't grow with that evolution, if he sees the calm as emptiness instead of maturity, he may always be chasing the next rush, the next high, the next beginning. What you can do. When you notice a man changing as the excitement fades, your first instinct might be to chase the version of him you fell for. But instead of chasing him, pause and center yourself. Ask deeper questions. Is he capable of emotional growth? Does he recognize the shift and want to work through it? Or is he emotionally unavailable, addicted to beginnings and fearful of depth? If the answer leans toward growth, then communicate. Gently but clearly. Invite him into the conversation. Help him understand that true love doesn't always feel like fireworks. Sometimes, it feels like a quiet flame that refuses to go out. But if he cannot meet you there, if he withdraws, shuts down, or blames you for the normal evolution of love, then the real change is not in him, but in what he is capable of offering. In the end, love that lasts is not made in the high of the beginning, but in the depth of the middle. A man who changes when the excitement fades isn't necessarily a bad person, but he may not be ready for the kind of love that requires presence beyond passion. And you, as a woman of worth, deserve more than just the thrill of the chase. You deserve someone who stays when the chase is over. Someone who chooses you, not because it's new, but because it's real. Everyone has a different perspective, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Leave a comment below and let's discuss. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to join me in the next videos. Let's continue together. Reason 2. He begins prioritizing other things. In the early stages of love, everything feels urgent and beautiful. Time is made, not found. He calls you even when he's tired, he drives across the city just to see you smile, and his eyes light up every time you enter the room. In that beginning, you are the priority, the focal point of his attention, his effort, and his emotional investment. But somewhere along the way, that intensity shifts. It's subtle at first. He replies a little slower. He forgets small things he used to remember. Plans start getting postponed, sometimes cancelled. You feel like you're slowly moving lower on a list you were once at the top of. You start wondering, what changed? And the answer might be something painfully simple: he started prioritizing other things. Life gets loud, but love shouldn't go silent. We live in a world that demands a lot from men: ambition, success, financial stability, status. As the relationship progresses and becomes more stable, some men start turning their focus toward other areas of life: career goals, family obligations, friendships, side projects, and even personal hobbies. This isn't inherently a bad thing. In fact, healthy relationships allow both people to grow individually. But when a man shifts his priorities without communication, when he starts acting as if the relationship can survive on autopilot while he chases everything else, it begins to create emotional distance. What was once sacred between you becomes routine. What once had his full attention now has only what's left over. The dangerous myth of "she'll understand." Many men fall into a dangerous mental trap, the belief that a long-term partner doesn't need as much attention as she once did. He assumes that since you're already his, you'll stay. He believes your love is strong enough to survive neglect. He confuses your patience for indifference and your silence for satisfaction. And so, he starts prioritizing that new promotion, those weekend hangouts, that hobby he just discovered. You become background music to the main event of his life. Not intentionally. Not cruelly. But carelessly. The tragedy here is that many women don't speak up right away. They give him space. They don't want to seem needy or clingy. They wait, hoping he'll notice the change. Hoping he'll come back with the same energy he once had. But when a man starts prioritizing other things without consciously protecting the space for you, the relationship begins to starve, quietly and slowly. The shift from passion to partnership. What many men don't understand is that love isn't just about passion and pleasure, it's about partnership. And partnership requires presence. It requires consistency, even when life gets busy. Especially when life gets busy. It's normal for a man to want to build his career, grow his finances, and pursue his dreams. But if those pursuits come at the cost of connection, something is broken. A healthy man doesn't make you compete with his goals, he makes you part of them. He involves you. He communicates. He reassures you that even when his time is stretched, his heart isn't pulling away. But if he treats your relationship as something that can wait, while everything else gets the best of him, that's not prioritization. That's emotional negligence. When you feel like a second option. The most painful part of this change is the feeling of being second, to his phone, to his meetings, to his gym schedule, to his friends. You start shrinking yourself to fit into the spaces he leaves open. You become the afterthought in your own love story. You may start adjusting your standards, convincing yourself that this is just a phase or he's just stressed. And yes, sometimes it is just a phase. But other times, it's a glimpse into how he will handle the relationship every time life gets difficult. And that's a pattern you cannot ignore. A silent cry for reconnection. Often, men don't even realize they're deprioritizing the relationship. They think they're doing what they're supposed to do, grinding, hustling, climbing the ladder. They assume the relationship is fine because there's no yelling, no drama, no visible cracks. But what they miss is the quiet cry from their partner. A longing for connection, for quality time, for presence. And by the time they realize they've distanced themselves, sometimes the damage is already done. The woman has grown tired of waiting. Tired of proving her worth. Tired of being a placeholder while he figures things out. What love requires. Real love doesn't demand constant attention, but it does require consistent effort. It asks that both people choose each other, not just when it's convenient, but when it's chaotic. It calls for balance, not perfect 50-50 splits, but intentional choices to make space for each other, even in busy seasons. When a man is truly in love, he doesn't have to choose between success and connection. He learns to manage both. He understands that the relationship needs fuel, time, and nurturing. He doesn't let everything else come first every single time. And if he does? Then the question becomes, is he building a future that includes you? Or just a future where you're expected to wait? You deserve to be a priority. If you're in a relationship where you constantly feel like you're competing with the rest of his life, take a moment to reflect. Your love is not a reward for bare minimum effort. You are not here to be scheduled in. You are not a convenience. You deserve a man who shows up for you, not just when it's easy, but when it's important. Because in the end, the way a man prioritizes you says everything about the way he values you. Love isn't measured by how much he chased you in the beginning. It's measured by how much he chooses you, over and over, once the chase is over and real life begins. If you are still watching the video, do not hesitate to comment continue. Leave your thoughts and questions below in the comment section. I look forward to hearing your opinions, and do not forget to like and subscribe to the channel so that Sophia has more motivation to create more good and meaningful videos. Let's continue together. Reason 3. Lack of communication and accumulated misunderstandings. In every relationship, communication is the bridge that keeps two people connected, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. When that bridge begins to crack, even the strongest foundations can eventually fall apart. And yet, this is one of the most common reasons why men change after being in a long-term relationship. Communication starts to fade, misunderstandings quietly build up, and no one really talks about what's happening. It doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual, so subtle that neither of you may realize what's going wrong until the gap feels too wide to cross. The early days, overflowing words and emotions. In the beginning, conversations are endless. You talk late into the night about your dreams, your fears, your childhood memories, your random thoughts. There's a constant flow of sharing and listening. He's eager to hear your opinions. He asks questions. He responds with care. You feel seen, heard, and emotionally close. But slowly, life settles in. The spark of curiosity fades. Conversations shrink down to logistics. What's for dinner? Did you pay the bill? What time are you coming home? The deep, meaningful exchanges that once created intimacy are replaced with silence, surface talk, or worse, irritation. You start sensing he's not really listening anymore. He seems distracted, distant, or dismissive. When you try to open up, his responses feel short or uninterested. You begin to hold back, afraid of being too emotional or too dramatic. And he, seeing less of your vulnerability, assumes everything is fine. But it's not. When silence speaks louder than words. Men often struggle with emotional communication. Not because they don't care, but because many were never taught how to express feelings in a safe and healthy way. They grow up learning to be strong, to handle things alone, to fix problems instead of talking about them. So when tension arises in a relationship, some men withdraw. Instead of facing the discomfort of difficult conversations, they shut down. They avoid. They give vague answers. They say I'm fine when they're not. And this silence becomes a slow poison that drains the connection from within. You, on the other hand, start to feel unseen. Your concerns go unacknowledged. Your emotional needs feel like burdens. You stop trying to explain, and he stops trying to ask. Misunderstandings begin to pile up, small at first, but eventually heavy. He thinks you're cold. You think he's careless. He believes you complain too much. You believe he doesn't care anymore. Neither of you is the villain. But without open communication, both of you feel alone, together. The danger of assumptions. In a communication breakdown, assumptions become dangerous. He assumes you'll always be there. You assume he doesn't love you like he used to. He assumes your silence means contentment. You assume his silence means rejection. And in the middle of all these unspoken assumptions, resentment begins to grow. You begin to keep score. How often he listens, how often he shows affection, how often he ignores what you say. He, in turn, begins to feel criticized or overwhelmed, even if you're only trying to reach him emotionally. It's a tragic spiral. The more misunderstood you feel, the less you communicate. The less you communicate, the more misunderstood you become. Emotional baggage that never gets unpacked. One of the hardest parts of long-term love is realizing how much pain can be caused by things that are never even said. The argument that was avoided. The feeling that went unexpressed. The apology that was never offered. The hurt that was never healed. When men stop communicating, these moments of emotional weight begin to pile up like silent baggage. He might not even realize he's carrying it, but it changes how he behaves. He may become more irritable, more impatient, more withdrawn. You might find yourself feeling like you're living with a stranger, someone physically present but emotionally absent. Over time, these unresolved issues erode trust, intimacy, and emotional safety. And when there's no safe space to speak and be heard, people stop trying. Healing the communication gap. It's important to remember, communication is not just about talking, it's about understanding. It's about listening not to reply, but to truly comprehend what the other person is feeling. And it takes two people committed to learning how to speak honestly and receive each other with empathy. If you're in a relationship where communication has broken down, don't start with blame. Start with curiosity. Ask gently. Share vulnerably. Say things like, "I miss how we used to talk. Can we find a way to reconnect? I feel like we're drifting and I want to understand what's going on. It's okay if you don't have all the answers. I just want you to open up with me." A man who cares will try. He may not get it perfect. He may stumble over his words. But if he loves you, he'll want to rebuild that bridge. He'll recognize that communication isn't a luxury in love, it's a necessity. And if he doesn't try? Then it's time to ask the harder questions. Is he emotionally mature enough for a lasting relationship? Is he willing to meet you halfway when things get tough? Is he capable of connection beyond convenience? Because a man who shuts down completely, who refuses to talk, who punishes you with silence, is not someone who's protecting peace. He's avoiding depth. And over time, that avoidance will hurt more than any fight ever could. In the end, communication is the heartbeat of love. Without it, even the deepest connections wither. Misunderstandings accumulate like dust in a quiet room, unnoticed, but suffocating. And when a man begins to change, when he grows distant or cold, the real issue is often not what he's doing, but what he's no longer saying. Love requires courage. The courage to speak, and the courage to listen. And if he can't, or won't, communicate, then maybe he's not ready for the kind of love that grows through honesty, not silence. Reason 4. The challenge is gone. In the beginning, many men are driven by the excitement of pursuit, the thrill of earning your affection, of breaking through your emotional walls, of showing up as someone worthy of your love. There's an energy that fuels their actions, an internal fire that pushes them to impress, to be consistent, to go the extra mile. In this phase, they're fully engaged because the outcome isn't yet guaranteed. But what happens after he wins you? What happens once the chase ends, the relationship becomes official, and you're no longer a mystery to solve, but a partner to keep? For some men, the shift from pursuit to presence is where everything begins to change, not because the love is gone, but because the challenge is. The psychology behind the pursuit. Men, by nature or conditioning, often find motivation in challenges. In work, in goals, and often, in love. When a woman is emotionally independent, selective, or slow to open up, many men are magnetized by the mystery. They become curious. They see her as a prize, not in a superficial sense, but in the way that she doesn't give her heart easily. She has standards. Boundaries. She's not afraid to walk away if she's not treated right. And that energy, the sense that she is a strong, sovereign individual, becomes the very fuel for his effort. But when the relationship becomes too predictable, too easy, or too one-sided, when the woman begins to revolve her world around him, compromise her needs, or lose her sense of self, he may begin to disengage. Why? Because he no longer feels the pull. The dynamic that once challenged him to rise, to prove himself, to show up fully, disappears. When certainty replaces curiosity. One of the most intoxicating parts of early love is curiosity. He wonders what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're doing when you're not with him. He makes an effort to discover your world, your desires, your soul. But once he feels like he knows everything about you, when he stops asking questions, stops showing interest in your evolution, stops paying attention to the little things, he may also stop trying. This isn't always a conscious decision. It's often a slow shift from curiosity to complacency. He assumes he's got you. That you'll stay no matter what. That you'll keep giving even if he's no longer earning. And the moment a man believes there's nothing left to discover, he may begin to emotionally check out. The danger of overgiving. Many women, in love, give everything. Time. Energy. Emotional labor. Support. Attention. They adapt. They accommodate. They try harder when things start to feel off, thinking that more love will solve the problem. But sometimes, overgiving backfires. Not because love should be transactional, but because men, like all humans, stop valuing what they no longer have to work for. If a man feels like you are always available, always agreeable, always giving, he may stop showing up with the same effort he once did. He forgets that what is valuable must be nurtured, not just possessed. He doesn't realize that the woman who once made him feel alive, intrigued, and inspired, is still there. She's just been buried under layers of people-pleasing and self-abandonment. Attraction is not just physical, it's energetic. What truly attracts a man isn't just your beauty. It's your boundaries. Your self-respect. Your sense of direction. Your refusal to settle for breadcrumbs of affection. When a woman holds herself with dignity, when she's willing to walk away from anything that doesn't honor her, when she lives a life full of purpose and passion, she becomes magnetically attractive. And when that presence begins to fade, when she puts him on a pedestal, centers her identity around him, and no longer shows the world who she is outside of the relationship, the attraction weakens. Not because she's less beautiful, but because her energy has shifted from empowered to dependent. And that shift makes him feel unchallenged, uninspired. Healthy challenge versus emotional games. It's important to clarify something here. Challenge doesn't mean playing games, manipulating emotions, or withholding love. True challenge is about maintaining your self-worth. It's about continuing to grow, to evolve, to protect your peace and pursue your dreams, even in love. Men deeply respect women who have emotional standards, who communicate clearly, and who are not afraid to say, "This isn't working for me." That kind of strength doesn't push a good man away, it awakens him. It reminds him that love is not owed. It's chosen, every day. But when the challenge disappears, when the relationship becomes a place of comfort but not growth, security but not stimulation, some men become complacent. They stop trying, and eventually, they stop caring. Reigniting the dynamic. So how do you restore that energy when it feels like the challenge is gone? You don't do it by begging, proving, or performing. You do it by remembering who you were before the relationship, and becoming her again, in even greater form. Start reclaiming your space. Your voice. Your time. Say no when you mean no. Make time for your goals, your friends, your passions. Stop chasing his attention and start embodying the version of you that never had to chase in the first place. When a man sees that you are not dependent on him for your sense of self, he re-engages. Not because you're withholding love, but because you're reminding him that your love is precious and must be matched with presence, effort, and consistency. In the end, a man who stops feeling challenged may not even realize that what he's losing isn't the woman, it's the fire she used to carry. The question is, can he grow into a man who doesn't need the thrill of uncertainty to stay engaged, who can choose you even when the chase is over? Because the woman who knows her worth is not here to keep him entertained. She's here to build something real. And if he wants to be part of that, he needs to rise. Not because she demands it, but because he wants to be worthy of her. Reason 5. Comparison or external influences. In a world where we're constantly bombarded by curated perfection, flawless relationships on social media, picture-perfect love stories in movies, and idealized standards everywhere we turn, it's easy for reality to begin feeling disappointing. What was once enough suddenly feels lacking. What was once deeply appreciated starts being quietly measured against something, or someone else. This is one of the most subtle yet dangerous shifts that can cause a man to change over time in a relationship, the creeping influence of comparison and external pressures. The illusion of better out there. A man may be in a stable, loving relationship. You've been there through his highs and lows. You've shared laughter, intimacy, support, and growth. But slowly, the outside world starts whispering, is this really the best you can have? What if there's something more exciting? More beautiful? More effortless? He scrolls through social media and sees glamorous couples vacationing in Bali, laughing in candlelit restaurants, capturing perfect selfies. He watches influencers posting filtered moments of affection and luxury, never showing the arguments, the compromise, or the emotional labor it takes to build real love. He starts subconsciously comparing. Not out of malice. Not because you've done anything wrong. But because he's seeing a fantasy. And forgetting the beauty of the reality right in front of him. What he forgets is that social media is a highlight reel, not a mirror. But when comparison seeps in, gratitude often slips out. And with it, his appreciation for the love he once fought so hard to keep. External voices, internal doubts. It's not just the images he sees. It's the conversations he hears. Friends who encourage him to live a little or tell him he's too tied down. Family members who question if you're really the one. Coworkers who casually talk about their escapades, igniting a sense of missing out. Even past lovers who reappear with unresolved tension or new appeal. The world is full of opinions, and for a man who hasn't deeply anchored his emotional maturity, these voices begin to shake the foundation of his commitment. He starts questioning, hesitating, distancing. Not necessarily because something is wrong in the relationship, but because someone outside planted a seed of doubt that he allowed to grow. And when doubt takes root, change follows. The grass is greener syndrome. Perhaps the most toxic influence is the belief that there might be something better. A prettier face. A more thrilling personality. A woman who doesn't argue. A relationship that feels easier. But what he's chasing isn't a new person. It's a feeling, the high of novelty. The ease of unfamiliarity. The illusion of perfection. He forgets that every relationship, no matter how exciting in the beginning, will eventually require effort. Compromise. Growth. He's idealizing something he doesn't fully understand and devaluing the reality he's already living. The woman who stands beside him has loved him through his flaws, supported his dreams, and weathered the storms. But he begins looking at her through the lens of comparison, instead of clarity. And that shift makes him distant. Irritable. Restless. It makes him question everything, not because you changed, but because he stopped seeing you clearly. Insecurity masquerading as dissatisfaction. Sometimes, comparison is just a mask for insecurity. He may feel inadequate in the relationship, not financially ready, not emotionally mature, not enough for the life he thinks you want. Instead of facing those fears, he projects them outward. He starts seeing flaws in you to distract from what he feels is lacking in himself. It's easier to say, maybe she's not right for me, than to admit, I'm afraid I can't be who she needs. And so, he distances himself. He grows cold. He seeks validation from other people, from achievements, from imagined alternatives, hoping it will silence the doubt he's too afraid to face directly. But no amount of external distraction can fix an internal wound. Protecting your peace in a world of noise. If you feel your partner growing cold, comparing, or being influenced by outside noise, it's tempting to fight harder, to prove your worth, to become better, prettier, calmer, more agreeable. But the truth is, you shouldn't have to compete with illusions. You are not here to be measured against strangers on a screen or fantasies in his mind. You are real. Your love is real. Your efforts, your emotions, your time, they all deserve to be met with presence, not projection. If a man allows the outside world to blur the way he sees you, that says more about his internal compass than it does about your value. You deserve someone who chooses you without hesitation, who shuts out the noise to hear your voice, who grounds himself in the real, not the imagined. When he wakes up, or doesn't. Sometimes, men snap out of this phase. They realize what they're doing. They come back with clarity and humility. They apologize. They rebuild. But sometimes, they don't. They keep chasing comparisons, addicted to fantasy, terrified of the work that real love requires. In those moments, you must decide, will I shrink myself to be someone else's idea of better? Or will I walk away and stand in my truth, whole, worthy, and unshakable? In the end, the man who compares will always be unsatisfied, not because you are lacking, but because his perception is clouded by everything that isn't real. He doesn't need a better partner. He needs a better perspective. And you? You need a love that doesn't waver when the world gets loud. A man who doesn't let opinions, images, or fleeting temptations change what his heart knows to be true. Because love isn't found in perfection, it's found in choosing someone again and again, despite the noise. Reason 6. He's struggling with himself or going through a personal crisis. Sometimes, the most confusing and painful shift in a relationship happens when a man begins to pull away, not because of something you did, and not because of someone else, but because he's quietly at war within himself. It's a strange place to be as a woman, feeling the change, sensing the distance, but not understanding it. You ask yourself, did I do something wrong? Is he losing interest? Is there someone else? But the truth is far more complex, and often invisible. He's not pulling away from you. He's pulling away from himself. The inner battles no one sees. Men are often taught to be strong. To hold it together. To fix problems silently. To man up when life gets hard. But the truth is, many men carry internal struggles they don't know how to process, childhood trauma, shame, fears about failure, feelings of inadequacy, or even an existential loss of direction. When a man is facing these emotional storms, he might not have the language to explain what's happening. So instead of expressing it, he shuts down. He becomes moody, distracted, cold. He may even seem angry, but what you're really witnessing is fear in disguise. He's not fighting you. He's fighting himself. Crisis doesn't always look loud. Not all personal crises are dramatic. Some are silent, creeping in like fog. He questions his purpose. He feels stuck in a job that drains him. He fears he's not the man he thought he would be by this age. He doubts whether he can truly provide or protect. He's haunted by unhealed emotional wounds. This internal conflict begins to spill into the relationship. You may notice that he withdraws emotionally, avoids deep conversations, or seems constantly elsewhere. He may even say things like, "I don't know what's wrong with me," or "I just need space." To you, it may feel like abandonment. But for him, it might be the only way he knows how to cope. When a man feels like a failure, a man's self-worth is often deeply tied to his sense of competence and contribution. When he feels like he's not succeeding, emotionally, financially, or spiritually, he often retreats. Not to punish you, not to escape, but to protect you from the parts of himself he can't yet face. He doesn't want to be seen as weak. He doesn't want to bring his chaos into your world. So he tries to isolate his struggle, which only makes you feel more disconnected. Ironically, the more he pulls away to protect you from his darkness, the more rejected and unloved you may feel. And neither of you knows how to bridge the silence. He may not know how to ask for help. One of the most tragic parts of male emotional struggle is this: many men have never been taught how to ask for help. They don't know how to say, "I'm scared." They don't know how to say, "I feel like I'm not enough." They don't know how to say, "I need you, but I don't want to burden you." So instead, they act out their pain. Through distance. Through irritability. Through emotional numbness. And you, standing in the storm, are left trying to decode the silence. What you can do. If you sense your man is battling something internal, start with empathy, not pressure. Understand that his change in behavior may have nothing to do with you, but everything to do with the war in his mind. Offer space, but not abandonment. Presence, but not pressure. Let him know, you don't have to have it all figured out. I'm here, not to fix you, but to walk beside you. Ask questions without accusation. You've seemed different lately, are you okay? I don't need you to be perfect. I just want you to let me in. If there's anything you're going through, I want to be the person you don't have to hide from. These words won't magically solve his internal conflict. But they create safety, the very thing he needs to begin healing. But don't lose yourself. Here's the truth many women forget: you can love someone who is struggling without losing yourself in their struggle. You are not responsible for healing him. You are not his therapist. You are not his emotional punching bag. Support is love. Sacrifice is not. If his personal crisis turns into prolonged neglect, emotional manipulation, or consistent disrespect, you have every right to step back. Not in anger, but in self-preservation. Because even the deepest love cannot survive in an environment where one person is constantly drowning and the other is expected to be the life raft, forever. He must choose healing. In the end, no matter how much you love him, he must choose to face his own demons. He must decide to grow, to seek help, to confront what he's been running from. You can't do it for him. You can only walk beside him if, and only if, he wants to walk through it. A man who grows through his personal crisis becomes stronger, more emotionally intelligent, and more deeply connected. But a man who avoids it, who lets his pain dictate his presence in the relationship, will only cause more damage, to himself and to you. In the end. Sometimes, the man you love changes not because he's fallen out of love with you, but because he's fallen out of love with himself. He doesn't need fixing. He needs reflection. And unless he chooses to look in the mirror and face the truth of who he is, with honesty, humility, and courage, the relationship will remain stuck in silence. And you, powerful and loving as you are, deserve more than silence. You deserve a man who doesn't run from himself. Because that's the only way he'll ever fully run toward you. Conclusion. When a man changes after being in love for a long time, it's rarely one single event that shifts everything. Often, it's the slow erosion of connection, driven by fading excitement, shifting priorities, lack of communication, the loss of emotional challenge, external comparisons, or personal battles he can't voice. Each reason tells a deeper story. Not always of love lost, but of love left unattended. As women, it's easy to internalize the change. To blame yourself. To wonder what you did wrong, or why you suddenly feel like a stranger in your own relationship. But the truth is, his change is often a reflection of his own inner world, not your worth. The challenge is not to fix him. The challenge is to stay rooted in your value, to stay emotionally intelligent and aware, and to decide what you will, and will not, accept. Relationships evolve. People change. But love that is real must grow through every season, not retreat when the weather gets rough. You deserve a love that shows up. That communicates. That chooses you not only in the passion of the beginning, but in the quiet, complicated middle. So when he changes, don't just chase the past. Ask yourself, is this someone who is willing to grow with me, or someone who was only meant to walk with me for a while? Your heart deserves more than half presence. It deserves a man who stays, not just when it's exciting, but when it's real. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's video. I hope you found some useful lessons about love and relationships. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I appreciate your support and will continue to bring valuable content in future videos. Please continue to join me on my journey to learn about love and relationships. See you soon, and I wish you happiness.